Is there anything out there you could point to that you think will be in buildings in 5 or 10 years that we pretty much don't see today?
Well, I think that we can almost follow a little bit of the trend recently. We've seen it with some of what we call performance venues. We are clearly transitioning from a seated experience to something else. And
Yeah.
the question will be, how do we build community when you get people out of chairs? In fact, if anything, I'll say this. I think we build communities better without them being in their chairs. The people mulling around, mixing together and stuff. I actually think we build better communities when people get up and socialize. Because we do ultimately go to these buildings because we may love the team, we may love the place, the building, we may love our city, we may love the people we're with. I mean, you feel that together. And I think that that's an important part of how we will go forward. Now, I do firmly believe that allowing people the flexibility of their personal choice of experiences is going to also mean that we have to be much more flexible in how we give them experiences. And that means that they choose their own journey. They choose their path. They choose what they want to experience. They pay for that or not.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
thinking now, I mean, you see all the national press about supply chain, but we have a people chain problem right now. I mean, there's just not enough
Yeah.
staff. The buildings are not staffed very well because folks have different things that they want to do. And not necessarily working in sporting venues is one of those. So we have a supply chain of materials, but we also have a people chain miss right now. And I think that no matter what happens, if we combine this kind of journey, freedom of a journey, experience journey with the lack of folks to help that, we have to learn to choose our own path. And it's personal. It's we choose what we want to do and how much we spend and where we go. If it's concessions or it's seated experience or it's something else, we have to find a way to make that seem seamless within the building and not necessarily just fragmented. It's not, I can only do that here. We have to do it everywhere. I think it's mandatory now as we go forward. It's almost like we've put 2 or 3 of our toes in the water, but we need to put the whole foot in the water. We need to be all in. Next 5 years, we're not all in. Folks will stop coming.
Yeah, yeah. And there's downward pressure on attendance globally as it was well before COVID, right? This was a downward trend. And there's a number of reasons for that. But I do think one of the key reasons is we're not keeping up with the total entertainment experience. I know we're always comparing against what is a pretty close to a frictionless mobile experience that people expect. The next generation absolutely demands it. And you think about all the points of friction in attending in person.
Yep.
By the way, I really appreciate you talking about people moving around. I can affirm this with you with statistics. 75% of current MLB attendees say that when they attend entertainment events, et cetera, that they tend to have more fun when they can move around, have multiple experiences at one event. That number is, by the way, about 60% for non-MLB attendees. This is a really powerful with memory making journeys, right? There's no question. You change the venue, you change the environment. And, the example we always use with other folks is tailgating with American football. Someone has a quality picnic, full day family and friendship experience, and they start to become independent of that win or loss, as opposed to, highly reliant on the success of the team on the field. But I appreciate you saying that, right? We have to make room for folks to move around and do as they wish, because that's what they get, right, in the digital world, and we're not giving it to them in sports.
No, not right now. We're getting there, but just slowly happening. And I don't think that, honestly, most of our professional clients they're just not going to have a choice. It manifests itself in everything we do, from the design side to the construction side to the event side. We're missing the kind of chain of people that would make that happen. And so we have to become much more efficient with what we do. And the freedom of choice for people to do what they want to do, we just have to find a way to do that better than we have been doing it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, just to throw one more out, hoping it's helpful, to our listeners. We did a pretty cool study that did quant and qual, and the qual was these biometric vests people wore that, tracked heart rate, sweat, and accelerometer or GPS locator. And one of the top points of friction was, in the whole driveway to driveway experience was traffic, transit, parking. And, a lot of owners and folks will say, well, I can't control that. But, there's this little trick we do to tease out what is correlated with fan satisfaction versus what people state. So people will say, like, the ticket price is an issue. But the truth is that, it's the opportunity cost of their time in exchange for the entertainment they're getting. Like, usually prices aren't really the biggest issue. It is that, let's take sticking with baseball, since you built so many of those buildings, 81 times a year, I got to deal with that parking garage. That's tough. It's a long game, right? I don't know if you have any thoughts or experiences on that. But speaking of frictionless experiences, whew, that's tough. It's tough to ask people post
You
COVID
know,
to go there in person.
and maybe it's just how I look at it. I look at when we do journey mapping, the journey mapping starts at everyone's house. And so it is really important that you understand if it's a millennial, I'll pick an age, 30-year-old, and maybe driving by themselves, which they shouldn't be, but they are, or they may be taking an Uber somewhere, how hard or easy it is or how expensive it is to get from point A to point B. If you make it more convenient or you find better rideshare opportunities or you find better mass transit opportunities, it makes it important. In fact, you go back to the comment you made earlier about my site selection skills or projects, we always do a traffic study. And now we do more than just traffic study. We do a traffic parking, traffic management study, zone parking study, zone traffic study. It's much more segmented in how we look at the experience of going from your home to a building. And even to the extent of understanding what it's going to look like in 5 years. We know, like right now in baseball, typically across America, rideshare constitutes somewhere between 2 to 5% of people coming to a Major League Baseball game, depending on the location.
Yeah.
And we know in 5 years that number is going to be in excess of 10%. The challenge is because the way our cities are designed, there's not a really great place to meet an Uber driver or
Yeah.
a staging area for them to meet you. And I think airports starting to adapt to that, but we definitely need to adapt to that on the sports stadium side. I think it's even the collegiate stadium side, arena side. It's coming. But yeah, so we'll see rideshare normally happen for us, maybe more consistently across America in the next 5 years. And that'll have an impact a little bit on how many people are on the road, but more than anything else, it'll make it a safer experience going to and from the event, especially if folks have partaken a few too many, We'll see that. But traffic management, traffic planning, parking planning, all that stuff we talked about earlier, I think that's really an important part of how you look at sites. And if you can't solve that well, most of the cities are growing. If you can't solve that well, how are you going to solve it in 5 years or 10 years or 15 or 20 years?